Okay, let's do a quick drawing so that we have something to work on today for the training. You can create the files off of the drawing. So I'm going to, on our electrical panel, I'm going to go Alt File or Alt F and then hit N for new. I'm going to use your flight title block. Going to right click, base view, and I'm going to change this one to front. I'm going to go ahead and rotate that so we've got a little bit more room, and I'm going to throw a couple other views on here, side view, end view, and an isometric. Say OK. Double click on the isometric view, deselect the label light bulb so that it changes that. We'll double click on the side view. Let's go side, and let's do bottom. Okay, so now that we've got our views all set up, let's kind of rearrange things here. Let's go up to annotate, go to your parts list, select on one of the views. I usually try to select the primary view. Select OK. Yep, we need to update it, it says. So I'm going to expand this. It looks like I need to do a little bit more on that back panel there, but that's alright. We're going to move this up into the corner so it snaps into the title block. Move this down just a little bit. I'm going to throw some center lines in here just to make it look good and so that it's easy to understand what's going on. So again, underneath the Annotate tab, come over to the center line. We're going to go from center to center, right click, create, center to center, right click, create. I'm going to throw some general dimensions on here. Click there, let it go to the snaps. I'm going to do a reference dimension because it's actually driven from the piece part file, the piece part drawing, I'm sorry. We're going to do an overall dimension. Again, that's going to be a reference. I'm going to put another one here. Jobs. Do a reference. And I'm going to move this down just a little bit. Hit D for dimension again. Pick on the outside of the flange. Try to find a grip. We're just going to go ahead and place it. Do reference. All of these are reference dimensions because the actual held dimensions are always based off of the piece part, unless you're welding something to it. Piece part detail drawing. Again, I'm going to slide down the title. Hit D for dimension. Go to the outside. Pull that down. Say OK. We need to get the overall width from there to there. And it's a reference. Okay, so on the front view, I'm going to right click. Actually, I'm going to hit escape to get out of the dimension. Right click. And I'm going to come in here to section view. And I'm going to go just to the left of the standoffs. Pull that down, click, right click, and continue. Pull your cursor or your mouse off to the left, and that gives you your section view. So you can see the standoffs. You can see that we've got a little gap in between the back plane and the back of the inside of the enclosure. So that it's easy to see on the drawing itself, I'm going to zoom up on here. You can see the little view window. I'm going to right click. I'm going to do a detail view. I'm going to pick just about the center point of that standoff and pull that off to the side. And I'm going to place it right up here in the corner, but you can see that I've got plenty of room, so I'm going to go ahead and resize this to something like 3/8. Let's see what that looks like. That looks pretty good. Make sure that nothing interferes here. We've got our width, we've got our length. I need to make that a reference. A couple of different ways you can do that. You can either double click on the dimension, bring up the dialog box, if it ever comes up. We went through a Windows update lately and everything's been running super slow. So once I brought up the dialog box, you can see that it has the little reference right here. You can do default, basic, all these other deals in here. The symmetric deviation, the limits, those are all tolerances that you can use. But then the nice thing about Autodesk Inventor, again, is that SolidWorks doesn't have this feature. I can right-click on a dimension, do copy properties, and copy that property, which is way nicer than having to double-click, click on reference, blah, blah, blah. It's just faster. Try to find the fastest method of doing things as possible. Okay, coming over to the detail B, we want to throw some bubbles on here so that you guys know, the fabricator knows what exactly everything is. So I'm going to bubble the standoff, and the way that I do that is if you're in Annotate, you can go to Balloon, or you can just hit B for Balloon. I'm going to go to the electrical enclosure, pull that off, right click, say Continue, and the only thing that's left is the back panel, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the back panel, left click to place it, right click to continue. And now one of the other nice features of Autodesk Inventor is I can double click on the parts list, bring up the parts list, and it tells you if an item is bubbled or not. So if I come back out here and I say, okay, I've got a really complex assembly, I can come in here and say, oh yeah, that my item 2 does not have a bubble. So come in here, bubble that, left click to place it, right click to continue, and now we've got a majority of the information that we need. So now we can, and one of the things that my OCD starts kicking in is the standoffs, the length, the width, and the thickness on standard off-the-shelf parts that you just don't need it. Especially if your description is clear enough, you won't need any of that information. So I'm going to right-click on the part number, go to Open. I'm going to go to the parameters, and I'm going to deselect everything that's exported, the length, the width, the thickness. Say Done. Save that. Close it. And again, the next, and as you can see, it has removed those dimensions. So now on the second one, I want to go ahead and put in the same information that I did with the back panel. And what I'm going to do is, since I've already done the code work for the description on this one, I'm going to go ahead and open up the electrical box. I'm going to go Alt-F, go to the eye properties, go to the project, hit the little F of X so that I can see my code, copy that out, apply, close, and then come back over to our drawing. And then I'm going to open up the back panel, right click on the part number, Alt-F, wait for it, eye properties, go to project, in the description, paste it, hit tab, and now you can see the little F of X. So everything that's in there, hit apply. So now you can see that the previous, the back, or the box enclosure, it had 14 gauge. With the parameters, it's nice because this is already set up as the sheet metal rule. It automatically changes that information. So if this back panel was stainless steel or aluminum, that is always going to adjust for whatever you've got in there. It's one less step that you have to do. So let's go back to our drawing. You'll see it populate. We've got our lengths, we've got our widths, so on and so forth. Let's save it real quick. Sure, we'll save it as that. Now you can see that we don't have a description and we don't have a revision, so what we can do is go up to your view, make sure that little view box opens up. You can right click, say open, go Alt F, eye properties, project, The description is, let's go, it's an assembly first, and it's a electrical enclosure with back panel. Revision is nothing because we haven't revised it yet. Apply it, save it, and come back over to our drawing, wait for it, and there it is. So we've got our description and we've got our revision. So let's go ahead and start creating the drawings for the electrical enclosure box and the electrical enclosure back panel. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on the notes down here. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'm going to go right click outside of the window here, go new sheet, and I'm going to do a Control V for paste. Paste that in the bottom left hand corner. The reason why I don't have these on every sheet is because I like to move them around. Sometimes I don't want them on the drawing, so I just don't put them on there. It's easy enough to do Control C, Control V to place the notes if I need them. Okay, so let's go ahead and place our electrical enclosure box part detail, piece detail part. So right click in the middle of the sheet, base view, and then let's select, make sure that we got the electrical enclosure, that's the back panel, electrical enclosure, these are the underscore box. I'm going to go ahead and rotate that. Again, that's another super nice feature about Autodesk Inventor, is it has this little view window box. You can rotate things. And let's go ahead and change the label to front. I'm going to do 0.125. And let's place a couple other views here. I'm not going to put an isometric. Yeah, I'm going to put an isometric view. Why not? It doesn't cost us anything. Okay, so let's rename. So let's double click on the view window up top. And let's go side. Double click on this one. Let's go bottom. Double click on the isometric. Deselect the view label. Let's pull this down a little bit. Let's go ahead and place our parts list. So annotate, parts list, pick on the part itself, say OK. Slide it up into the corner. Beautiful. Everything looks good now. Now this one's probably going to be a couple of sheets long. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on this. There's going to be a whole nother drawing for all the dimensions and the tolerances and all that kind of stuff. Mainly what I want to do is be able to print this out so that you guys can start recreating this. So let's just throw some general dimensions and some weld symbols on here. Let's put a center line to show that we've got some circles here. So underneath of annotate, we come up to our center hole line, pick on the center, right click, create, pick, right click, create, left pick, right click, create, left pick, right click, create. Okay, so now we've got a majority of everything here. I am going to do a section view down through here so that we can get our flange detail callouts. So I'm going to go right click, section view, and again, this is another one of super nice things about Autodesk Inventor over SolidWorks is just the ease of being able to quickly be able to do cross sections and also drive them off of the part file itself. So let me show you what I'm talking about there. Is I'm able to highlight over the top, so I left pick on that section view, the cut line. I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to edit that cut line. And you can see that it's got a line here, and you could actually delete this, go up to sketch and create a whole nother line if you wanted to, or you could have that line zigzag all throughout the entire thing. So I'm going to zoom up to this one edge here. I'm going to hit D for dimension, and I'm going to select the outside of the box, and I'm going to select the outside of the line, and I'm going to put 2 inches. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom side. I'm going to go outside of the box to the edge, and I'm going to click on that, select that. I'm going to select on the vertical line, and I'm going to say that it's 6 inches. And so now if my box ever resizes, it's always going to stay on the outside of the box. So if the box changes and you don't have these dimensions in here, there's a very good chance that if it's a larger box, it'll actually be the cross section will actually break it back wherever the offset is. So if your line endpoint is down here because the box increased in size, you're only going to see whatever that line is actually cutting through. So that's a super nice feature. Again, it's one of those things that SolidWorks doesn't have. It's sad that it doesn't have that, but especially if you're working with parametric models, super nice to have. So let's go ahead and right-click on this view over here and put a detail view of the flange itself. Let's pick on that there. Let's place it up here. Let's make it large enough so that the fabricators can actually see what's going on. I'm going to make that 3/8. Move a few things around, hit D for dimension. And we know that this is a typical offset, so I'm going to go to text, hit enter, type in TYP, center it. So the formatting of the text, center, select OK. And then I'm going to hit D for dimension. Now, one of the cool things, again, about Autodesk Inventor is it's going to place the text on the side that you first start dimensioning off of. So if I dimension off of this point to this point, it's going to place the text on the right-hand side because I started on the right-hand side. This one I'm going to pick on the left-hand side to the outside there. I'm going to pick there, and I'm going to say tip. So now they know exactly how deep and how wide that flange needs to be on every side. Since it's a typical dimension, it'll be all the way around. We're going to go ahead and dimension these flanges here, but they're going to be reference dimensions. So let's go ahead and throw some of these other dimensions on here. I'm going to hit D for dimension, pick the outside. We're going to pull it down this direction. We'll move the label here in just a second. So I'm going to move this down like this, move that view up, move that down a few more times. Perfect. So now I'm going to pick on the left side because I want my text to be on the outside. Pick on that outside of the flange, and we'll place it right there. We're going to do precision and tolerance. We want this to be a reference. Select OK. I'm going to go ahead and select the outside here, so that whoever's forming this up, they can double check the dimensional information. Even though it's a reference, they can still just double check. It's nice to have those dimensions there. So now we have the length of our box, we have the length of our flanges, and we can throw in another couple of dimensions. Let's say the 6-inch here. It's not a reference dimension because it's the first time that we're placing this, so we're going to go OK. But this one here to this one here, we are going to put a reference dimension because we've already got it shown in detail D. Put a reference there. Let's go to outside. Let's go reference again. Now, we've got our length, we've got our depth, we've got our overall depth, and the flange is detailed. Let's see here. The width is about the only thing that we haven't done yet. So we're going to place these similar dimensions down here. So let's go ahead and start with our outside to outside. Not a reference dimension because it's the first time we're placing it. This one is going to be a reference dimension, and I'm starting on the outside. Place that dimension, put a reference. Let's go outside to outside. And even though those are overlapping, we'll move that dimension here in just a second, make that a reference. Zoom up. Wait for it. Cancel. Okay. Move that down. Move this one out just a little bit more. Let's move our views over. Okay, so now we've got pretty much everything except for the hole locations, the hole size, and the flat pattern, as well as weld callouts. So let's go ahead and dimension some of these hole, or we'll dimension the hole locations. So let's go ahead and hit D for dimension. Click on the outside, zoom out a little bit. Control Z, get rid of that. Let's go outside to here. It is having a problem with this. Okay. Outside to here. There we go. For some reason I had to pick on the center of the hole instead of the vertical line. So let's place OK. Let's go from center to center. Say OK. I'm going to go ahead and move this section view call out so that it's not intersecting there. Let's go ahead and place this dimension here to here. Let's move these dimensions up just a little bit. Let's go something like this. You can see how it snaps. When I pull this over, I want it to be in line with that other one. So if you hover over the top of the adjoining dimension, it'll snap to that one. Got a little room up here, so I'm going to actually move that up. And now we need to put a hole dimension in here. So I'm going to come up to Annotate, click over the hole and thread, pick on that hole there, drag it off to the side. It's saying okay that it's a 2100ths hole, and it is 800ths deep, or it's going through the material thickness. I'm going to hit Escape, double click on the dimension. I'm going to come to the very center, or the very beginning of the hole call out, and I'm going to put in quantity hole note. Again, this is one of the things in the template files that you can actually have it show exactly what you want. Like these quantities could always be included in the hole dimension information. One of the things that we can change, just let me know if that's something you do want in there. I don't like having it there. I like having control whether or not I want to call out how many holes there are. So now we've got that. Last thing we need to do is call out a weld call out. So Annotate, welding, and I'm going to call out this little seam here. Left click to place it, right click to continue. And we are going to, and it always brings up whatever we had previously. This one is actually going to be a seam weld. I want this to be a flat and ground smooth. We don't want it to be a stitch weld. We do want it to be about the thickness of the sheet metal itself. And one of the things, I'm actually going to change this to a V-groove. And we're going to make it just under the thickness of the material. I'm going to go ahead and take all this information out. And I'm going to say tip. I'm actually going to say seal, tip. So that they seal that completely closed. And they're going to grind it. It's about 3/32 grinding and welding to seal up the edges. I am also going to click, we're going to place, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go make sure that the view is activated, right click, do a detail view. Let's do a detail view of this corner here. Let's make it a 3/8 again. And then let's drag this one over here. I need to bring this over just a little bit. You stay there. One of the things we can do for these detail views so they don't wander around like our section views, we can right click, attach it to some feature on the box itself. So now let's pick on the weld call out, pick on the leader, and bring that over there. Let's get it out of the way because we want a call out right in this little V groove. So I'm going to go to welding again, pick in that corner there, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now, since these are both kind of similar weld callouts, I could have used this one right here in that corner. So you can either place one like I'm doing now, or you can just do a leader. And let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that one because it's looking ugly anyway. Okay, so right click on the leader line, the leader itself, and then go to Add Vertex Leader. Pick in the corner here, and we're going to pick it right down where the little weld all around is. Now, welding all around on something like this, there really isn't all the way around, but for the most part, they'll understand what you're talking about. Let's go add vertex. I want to add a vertex or add a little vertice in here and pull that little kick out so that it's not right over the top of each other. I'm going to do the same thing for this one. I'm going to right click on it again, add vertex, pick on the center of that, pull that out, and that is looking mighty fine. So now let's save it. And let's add the flat pattern for this view. So I'm going to go right click, new sheet, right click, base view, select our file, enclosure box, yep. Go to flat pattern, and I'm going to increase this to 7/8 since it's the only thing that's on this sheet. Yeah, that looks about right. That should work just fine. I'm going to go to the label and I'm going to name this flat pattern. Say OK. First thing I'm going to do is go to this little bend feature underneath of annotate, so bend, and I'm just going to go and highlight the whole entire thing. And then it puts all the information on there that the sheet metal brake press guy works off of. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add, let's add the dimensions from here to here. You always want the dimensions starting off of the edge because they're always going to work off of the edge that's closest. That one to that one. Now one thing we can do is we can put in, since we know that these are typical all the way around, I'm just going to put in tip because our drawing is going to get really tight really quick. So I'm going to right click, go copy properties, pick on that one. And I think I'm going to double click, left double click on this. I'm going to scale this back just a little bit. I hate using off fractional dimensions, but we kind of have to sometimes. So let's move this a little bit. Hit D for dimension. Let's dimension this last one here. Say OK. We can throw some on here just for shits and giggles, but make it a reference dimension since we've already got it called out here and it says tip. Say OK. Okay. All right, so we've got pretty much everything that we need. We just need some overall dimensions. Double click to get full view. I'm going to right click on this, copy the properties, copy that one, and this one, and this one. So that should give them everything they need to form that up. I'm going to double click on that sheet there. I'm going to copy this out. Okay, so we've got everything for the box. Now let's start on the back panel. I'm going to right click in the open space in the drawing itself and say new sheet. I'm going to paste that little note segment down in the bottom left. Go to base view. Let's go to electrical back panel. Swing that little sucker around. Get rid of that 10. Let's make it a nice, we can make this one a little bit bigger. Let's see what that happens. Yeah, that'll work. So let's go ahead and place that one. Sure. We'll put another isometric in there. Say OK. Isometric didn't come in, but that's a good thing. We can show you how to add that. So if you go into the view, make sure the little red box shows up. Right click, do projected view. Pull it off to the side, right click again, create. Let's double click and let's get rid of the label, and then let's also reduce the size so that we've got enough space for our flat pattern. Double click so that we can see the whole view. Double click on the view so that we can rename it side, end, and let's put a parts list. Let's expand this out a little bit so that it's not overlapping. And you'll see that the item number, it says 1, but if we look at the first sheet, that's actually item number 2. So I'm going to go back to sheet 4, double click on the parts list, highlight the item, and then hard enter that. I hate that we have to do that. It's just something that's always been static. It's not a dynamic number. Let's go ahead and put our center lines in here. Right click, create. So again, annotate, center line, center to center, right click, create, right click, create, right click, create. Hit escape to get out of the center line command, hit D for dimension, and let's start dimensioning it. Not sure why the previous drawing would not allow us to pick on the horizontal or the vertical line. We had to pick on the center of the hole. A lot of funny things going on lately. Blaming Microsoft for that. It seems a lot slower. I know part of the reason why it's so slow right now is because we're doing the screen capture. It eats up a ton of memory. And I don't have the greatest video card in this computer. Let's place the whole dimensional information on the drawing as well. So annotate the hole and thread feature. Hit escape. Left double click. Go to the beginning. Beautiful. Let's pull it down so that we're not overlapping on things. Zoom back up on our side view. Let's hit D for dimension. Let's place that. Wait for the dialog box to open up. Let's go to Text tab, hit Enter, put in tip, center formatting. That looks good there. It's kind of optional if you want to weld up these corners. It really doesn't need to, since it doesn't need to be watertight or anything. I'm going to go ahead and leave it off, but let's go ahead and place our flat pattern, and then that will take care of pretty much this project. So let's go right click. Let's try that again. Right click, base view. And let's go and select electrical back panel. We want to go to, ooh, something is jacked here. Let's make sure that I got, oh, I'm on the wrong one. Need to go electrical back panel, this one. And it's still, oh, there it goes. Okay, so you can see how it's purple. I need to update that. I need to open it up and update it, but I'm going to go ahead and place that view. So let's go in and open. And let's go to right click and go to flat pattern. Let's save it. It's going to tell me that it needs to go back to the formed view to save it. And are we going to update or not? Nope, let's get rid of that one. For some reason that is not working on the flat pattern. I'm going to right click, base view again. Let's see if we can get it to show up. Yep, it'll show up this time. Huh. Something is wrong. No, it's showing right. Okay. So let's double click on this. Change this to flat pattern. Hit D for dimension. Let's dimension this sucker out. And we're going to go tip, there, here. So that pretty much covers all of our flanges. So we're just going to go like this. Make this as a reference dimension. Go here to here. Make this a reference dimension. Let's go back up to annotate, go to our bends, highlight our view, and we've got success. Let's go File, Save, and just for shits and giggles, let's go and create the DXF file. So let's go ahead and open this up. So right click on it, open, right click, go to the flat pattern, go Alt F or File, go to the eye properties, go to and highlight everything except for the .ipt. Say close. Left pick on the face, right click and say export face. Make sure that we're underneath of the file folder that you want it to be. Control V to paste it. Save it. And one of the things, especially if you're sending it off to, actually just do this regardless if you're sending it to CNT or anybody else. When you go into export the face, make sure that you go down to the options and you're doing exporting out to AutoCAD 2004 DXF. That will ensure that whatever software that they're using, regardless of whether or not it can accept a 2020 DXF or 2004, most of the programs out there, as long as they're fairly new, they'll be able to accept it. Lately, Derek has been having a lot of problems with being able to open anything from this new version. So just make sure that you down save your DXF files. So again, let's do this one more time. Let's go ahead and right click, left click to select a view, right click and open, right click, go to flat pattern, Alt F, eye properties, go to project, or you can go to general and copy it out. The only problem with that is then you have to be very particular about where you highlight. Go to project, you can just highlight the whole thing and it's good to go. So we can right click, go to export face. Again, go to you don't have to do this every time, but make sure your options and you've got 2004 or something lower than that for your DXF. Pick in your file name, Control V to paste it, save it, and now we have our DXF files so that you can cut those out. So that should do that. I'm going to right click, go to the folded part, Alt File Save, go ahead and close that. So this tutorial is done as far as this is concerned. I'll see you guys in just a little bit.